And that's what I get so fired up about, is this constant renewal process. Are you in the beginning? Here's the North Star. Are you in the middle? Here's the North Star. Are you at the end? No, you're not. So here's the North Star. Right?
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Unlock Potential. I'm Brian Delaney. Our focus this season is fitness. I'll be joined by Dr. Duvall, who's going to guide us through his protocol for getting into your best shape so we can live our best lives and serve others well.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is episode 34 of Unlock Potential. I'm so glad to have you back with us once again. I know so many of you have started at season 2 or maybe started even at season 1, and you're working through these episodes and you're trying to get a real sense. What is the Stay Active method? Is it right for me? And what are some of my guidance systems as I go through it? How do I navigate my journey, the hero's journey? How do I navigate that properly? And what are some of the landmarks that are going to allow me to know that along the way? And so Corey and I, we're going to dig into that. As you guys all know, Corey, my business partner, also the owner of CrossFit AVL, also the creator of the Stay Active method. Today, we're going to take some time and really break down that North Star for people who are on the heroes that are on their fitness journey, in the same way that those early explorers needed to have their North Star so they could navigate from the land they knew to the land they desired. In much of the same way I know a lot of the people who are on their hero's journey with you are doing right now. So fired to have you back with me today and to break this down so that this can be accessible and available to them to guide them on their journey.
Yeah, very excited to be here and explain this for folks.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So every journey begins with personal accountability. There is some aspect that you need to be accountable for and take responsibility for. That can be simple, like I'm going to go to the gym today. So here I am, I'm at the gym and I've started my journey. Now, as I start my journey, I see myself getting better. I see myself on an elevation. Hey, I was usually sitting on the couch. I was usually not exercising. Today, I've started an exercise journey. I'm getting better. Now, as we get better, it's not an infinitely upward progress. We're going to encounter limitations of the body, and the body is going to ask us to redirect. We call that compassionate challenge. The elbow pain that you're experiencing is not that there's something wrong with the elbow. It's the elbow saying, hey, what you're doing needs to shift a little bit. Don't stop, but make a change. We're going to get there, but you've got to adjust how you're doing it. Now, if you don't listen to that and you stop, if you hear that and go, oh, this isn't for me, and you descend back down, we don't make progress on our journey. Go ahead.
And that's exactly what I've done before. This has been a red light, not a yellow light for me in the past. And so that's why I'm so excited to have this even for myself as a resource, so I can turn some of those red lights into yellow lights and eventually just green lights. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we meet that compassionate challenge and our intention is to keep moving forward, but we get redirected. As we get redirected, it's going to feel like you're going backwards. So here I am, I'm exercising, I'm doing the exercise. My elbow is like, hey, you got to do this differently. And so now all of a sudden I have to take a little break and then I get back to it and keep going. But as I come back and keep going, I'm doing it in a little bit of an awkward way. And it feels like I'm going backwards. You have to encounter and create a balanced growth mindset. And what that means is you're not always going upward. You have to sometimes descend in order to rise again. That is a natural part of our physiology, and if we try to ignore it, we're never going to get anywhere. But if we feel it and ride down with the wave, we're going to get the reaction to spring off the bottom again. And so we take on something accountable. I'm going to show up and exercise. I start that exercise. My body redirects me. As I get redirected, I realize I'm not going backwards, but I do have to descend a little bit. And so you go through this phase where you feel like you're losing progress. You feel like you've gone backwards and you realize that there needs to be a descent. And you're going through that descent and you're like, I feel like I'm not making progress. And your body is redirecting you down to a little bit of a back off, but you get to develop grounded resilience. Resilience is the ability to accept the descent and redirect and rise again. It's a natural rhythm to go through those highs and lows. And when we've gone on a particular trajectory, we've accepted that we're balanced in our growth and we've allowed that descent. When the time is ready, we're going to realize, ooh, I get to climb again. And there's going to be a spring shot. You're going to have made some progress. Your body is going to slow you down and back you off. And then when you hit the right phase, your body's going to take off. Boom, breakthrough. When people say, oh, I finally broke through a plateau, they had to get redirected. They had to feel like they were going backwards. They had to accept that there's a little bit of a loss. And only if they stay on the journey that far will they get the breakthrough on the plateau. That breakthrough on the plateau, you reach new heights. You reach new levels. And that's awesome. We get there, we're like, hey, I was here, now I'm here. Yes, I feel amazing. Now, from that new vantage point is where we get to take that next phase. Because some people set that goal. They're like, this is my goal. And they break through and they get that goal. Now you're actually there. But you have an obligation when you're there. You're at that new level, which gave you a new perspective. Your awareness is expanded. And what that means is you've got to continue along that journey to more personal accountability. Oh,
so good.
Now I've got to go a little bit farther here because I was accountable to showing up to the gym. But now I've got to be accountable for recovering from that work. What's my hydration level? Okay, well, I'm going to start drinking some water, and my body's going to give me symptoms and signs that are associated with being more well hydrated, and it's going to redirect me, and I'm going to have to make a loss or accept a descent for a little while, and I'm going to break through to a new level again.
Yep, absolutely. And at each one of these moments, what I found is that, when you have that personal accountability and you show up, and then understanding what's there, we provide some compassionate challenge, and we might experience some of those dips and plateaus. I remember being not pretty early on, but I would say about a year ago, I started to encounter some shoulder pain, and it really restricted my ability to do my ring mounts. And that's where I actually exposed the shoulder pain, was in those ring mounts. And a lot of that had to do with limited mobility when it came to chest and shoulder opening. The connective tissue there was a bit more restricted, and what I was then it was a bit more restricted than what I was asking for it to be able to do. And so as it exposed that, it exposed some sensitivities, some things that I was not familiar with, right? There's some things that can look a whole lot like injury and would have been injury if I just kept aggravating it. But instead, you directed me toward compassionate challenge. You said, yes, that's there. No, it's not an injury. And no, we can't be ignorant of it.
Right.
Both of those things. So knowing that, now we're going to have to go here. Well, that sensitivity became very quickly a lack of strength that got exposed when I was trying to do ring mounts and when I was trying to put the bar overhead. Right. Because I felt like I had a lot of up pressure, but when it came down to lowering slowly against gravity in order to build balance and coordination into the system, I would get here and then it would jump down because my left shoulder was sensitive and it was aggravating and it had less strength to it. Right. I had less trust in it as well. So it was a mind-body connection around that. So now, 1 year later, no pain in the shoulder, no sensitivity in the shoulder, hitting PRs overhead, not even close, like heavy weight PRs at lower body weight, which is amazing. Like to be able to drop close to 40 pounds, 35 to 40 pounds, just depending on where I am in the month. But to be able to do that and hit way over my overhead PRs, I needed to go through that whole process.
Exactly.
But in those moments, what used to be quitting moments became committing moments.
Right.
Because I allowed it to metabolize the whole way through. Now, if I just stopped there, where I'm sitting here and now I have this expansive awareness, right? Where this journey is a mountain with no top, but we just keep raising the bottom and grabbing the new perspectives. But let's say I stay in that place of perspective and I haven't renewed my goals. I haven't taken personal accountability, not for the last step, but the next step. What happens? Well, first, my vision has passed its energy expiration date. The previous goal that I have no longer has very much energy in it for me. It's expired and I need something new. Second thing, I can go further backwards than where I was before, because just as so many books talk about, some really great ancient traditions, without vision, people perish, right? Without hope in the future, we become prisoners of logic and memory, right? So we go back there. Or I can just stay with my expanded awareness and judge everybody else who's just starting and just be a dick. Like just get in that territory. Oh, well, if they just knew how to do it, right? Like you become this person, because there's the only real connecting energy and inspiration is not in how you've grown, it's how you're growing. It's not in what you've learned, it's what you're learning. And people are inspired by the journey, and we let go of the destination, because as much as I have that expansive awareness, the reason it's not that valuable to me is something in my human organism, something in the way that I was designed and built has me, when I go through a process of getting something, it has me right when I get it to be prepared to let it go. And we call it the hedonic treadmill. We call it a lot of things. Like once we get there, that's why people say it's all about the journey, not the destination. That's why we talk about the North Star of the journey, not the North Star of the destination.
Right.
Right. So, if I hold on to that, then I don't ever get to the next level. If I just hold on to that expansive awareness, instead of sacrificing that to a higher level of personal accountability, a higher level of compassion and a challenge, a higher level of balanced growth mindset, a higher level of grounded awareness, and a new level of expansive awareness, unless I sacrifice it, I get stuck and stagnant. And I become that person who just judges all the new people in the gym, rather than is inspired by the energy, enthusiasm, hope, appreciation of those new people in order to continue my journey of elevation and provide an example of what it looks like to eliminate excuses, to raise standards, and to be able to reset at these new levels.
Right.
And that's what I get so fired up about, is this constant renewal process. Are you in the beginning? Here's the North Star. Are you in the middle? Here's the North Star. Are you at the end? No, you're not. So here's the North Star. Right? Hopefully you'll find out after you can really find out, you'll find out if you're at the end. But, but this as that guide, it tracks with everything that I know. And once I get to that expansive awareness, and once you have that awareness, don't hold on to it like the person who has beaten the first level of Super Mario or of Duck Hunt, or of, those people who play the same levels on the same game. It's like, no, you already beat that level. Don't keep playing a level you already beat. Be willing to sacrifice that expansive awareness to a new level of personal accountability, because it's only in sacrificing what we have that we get what we don't.
Right.
You as a coach know that unless I let go of mine, you're not going to be able to give me yours.
Right.
But I got to let go. And sometimes I've worked so hard for it, though, Corey. It's my precious. It's my precious. That's all I want. Like, I want to hold on to that. I want to hold on. I want to believe my own press.
Right.
I'm the heaviest lifter of all time until something very easily and accessibly shatters that perspective, where I watch somebody push up 3 times that weight over their head at the same body limit, and then I get re-inspired again. But if I'm stuck there, I don't get re-inspired. I just become a victim. I just have no ownership. So I just wanted to walk through my own personal journey with that, to give an example of how this looks at different levels of that, and the requirements that aren't necessarily what you think that they are, but they might be just a little bit different to be even more true.
So I'm going to tie a couple of things into what you just said, which was beautiful. If we appropriately set the goals of peak of strength, and broad bases of stamina and flexibility, that requires so much out of our body. It requires us to open and reach new heights and spread our roots deeper. And on a more physiological level, that means when you deadlift 400 pounds and feel fine, you're then expected to, and then you're expected to, and then you're expected to, and you're going to start to feel some things. And the next time you come back towards 400, you might touch 400 and then feel a little less comfortable after it, which is a new expansive awareness, because you didn't just peak to one perfect day where you lifted 400 pounds off the ground. You held yourself accountable to doing all of the other things. And the next time you got to 400, because you had done all of those things, you'd taken care of your family, you'd taken care of your business, you had taken care of everything else. You do 400 and you got a little soreness in there. Now, when you have a little soreness, you got to take care of that. You got to hydrate well. You got to do the right amount of flexibility. As you do the flexibility work, the soreness dissipates. You got to do your stamina work. Now, as you're doing your stamina work, that's lighter weights than the 400. You don't feel like a big shot when you're doing the weights that are appropriate for your stamina work. And as you're going through that process, you're going through that whole journey again. When you do it correctly, you'll get to 450. But there's going to be a whole lot of times where you're back down here in the personal accountability space. Now, before I get to my own personal experience with that, I really want to utilize the concept of the black belt that's in martial arts. I had always seen, you start with a white belt, and then you get a green belt, and then you get a purple belt, and then you get a blue belt. And I'd never been a part of a martial art, but I knew that there were all these stages that you go through, and a black belt was the best. And a friend who was a high-level masters CrossFit athlete quite a few years ago had gone through some martial arts when she was younger, but told me the origins of the black belt. When you started your training, they gave you a white belt. You never graduated to the next one. You just kept that same white belt. And when you put in some work and you'd be pulling on it and tugging on it and doing your stuff, it would get a little tinged. And when it got a little tinged, it would be brown. You didn't graduate to a brown belt. You just did enough of the work to where your belt was brown. Now you'd work a little more and you'd work a little more and you'd try and you'd fight and you'd struggle, and that tinge would get darker and darker and darker. Now it starts to look almost purple in color. Okay, it's not a brown belt, now it's a purple belt. Oh, you didn't graduate to the next level. It's just darker because you put in the work. Now you keep putting in that work, and year after year, more and more tinge starts working its way into the belt. You never wash it, and you're putting in all that work. And eventually it's so dirty and disgusting that it's black. It's just black with soot. You've worked enough to get to the level where you're a black belt.
Wow.
Well, you don't stop. What do? You keep working. You're already a black belt, but you've put in all this work. You just keep working. And as you continue working, the fibers on that black belt start to fray because you're still putting in work. Now, when you have dirt on the outside and it starts to fray, what happens? It exposes an area. Well, what's that new area? It's white. You're a beginner all over again in one little area. You got to put in that beginner work in that one little area.
So good. So good. And so true, because at this point, I feel strong. I'm in those places, right? I have that personal accountability of being more fit in all the domains, being, having more mobility, having more agility, being able to do certain movements at a higher degree, being able to look and feel in a certain way. I have those new places. So in order to accomplish that, I go from squatting on two legs, like from 2-leg squat to one. And then I have just put a whole bunch of weight on my back, doing ground to essentially standing up. What are we calling it?
Sitting to standing.
Going from sitting to standing. All of a sudden, I've done a lot of work with 2 legs, doing that with weight on either in a front rack or a back rack position. But now I've got to do it with 1 leg. Okay, now all the weights drop again. And it can feel like when I'm picking up the empty bar, I'm restarting again. Especially if I don't sacrifice the expansive awareness and the ego that comes with that. If I don't sacrifice it and I try to hold on too tightly to where I've been rather than where I'm going, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to personal accountability, and it's going to feel like humiliation. But when I do appropriately sacrifice that, and I realize that the rewards of the work that I've done are kind of like, I just went on a trip, went to the Bahamas, right? It's sitting in my media room at home is this really neat wooden carved statue that we have from the Bahamas that my wife had gotten the last time we were there, right? So, but that is something from our last trip to the Bahamas, not our next trip to the Bahamas, right? That's a souvenir, not a reward. Okay, so that tells me where I've been, not where I'm going. So that it's the same thing with that expansive awareness. When I sacrifice that appropriately, instead of it becoming a humiliation because I feel powerless, it becomes humility, which is power under control. I'm controlling that, knowing that I've been here before, knowing, oh yeah, this has a temptation to feel like humiliation because Corey won't put freaking big 10-pound wheels in here. We only have the tiny ones, or God forbid, I have to put 5-pounders on. And I'm just like, oh, this is great. But then when I go to do it on one leg, all of a sudden I'm breathe, and then push up, and then go into the further range of motion, which brings me back to, I thought I could do something better than what I could. My expectations are different than the reality. And I either quit because I'm too reliant on my expectations, or I learn to have a different mindset because I'm saying things are different now and I'm growing capacity in a different place than I've ever had it before.
Yeah.
And so this is such a journey of humility through all of it. And you get to watch this crazy drama play out on a daily basis.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah.
So some of my personal action through here, some of my journey on this process, I had set a goal of carrying 4 times my body weight on my shoulders. So at the time I was around 200 pounds. I set the goal of, okay, I'm around 200 pounds. I want to carry 800 pounds on my shoulders for a first down, 10 yards, 10 meters. So I set that goal. And I start working up, and I get up to 700 in the first year.
Wow.
But I can't get 720 off the ground. Okay, I've got to go through this whole process. I didn't get there. Now, as I continue along that journey, the next year I get 740. So I got 700, I couldn't get 720. The next year, okay, well, I got 740 instead of the 800 that I wanted to. I continue working. And the third year, as I'm going through that year, there are some phases and seasons where I can't even get 500 pounds off the ground.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, I have this goal. I was here. Now I'm like, today I can't even get 500 pounds off the ground. Like, I'm under the bar. Like, usually it just pops up. Like, what is happening here?
Anybody who's ever lifted weights for any period of time toward like a progressive goal knows this feeling where I'm going to lift up a kettlebell, or you're going with, and you're just like, it's like, that was light yesterday, right? Or on the opposite end, right?
Yep.
If we push through, we get to, right? We get to that other feeling of where you expect it to be heavy and it's light, but that everybody knows that feeling, that frustration of like, I'm hyped up to go to the gym. Why does this 30-pound dumbbell feel like a 50-pound dumbbell? So yeah, absolutely.
So I'm on that journey, and there's a moment where I'm like, over and over, where it was just too heavy and I couldn't get 500 pounds off the ground, but I kept my sight like, okay, I'm going to get there. This is just an off season. This is an off day. I'm going to learn from this. And finally the day comes where I had said, okay, I'm built up to this. I'm going to try to get this today. And I go to step up with it, and I lift it off the ground. 800 pounds is on my shoulders. And I think I'm going to take a step with it. And as I go to take a step, boom, it just drops right back down. And I walk away from it for a second. I'm like, okay, today is the day. And I pick it up, and I get it off the ground, and I take a step, and as I go to take a second step, hits the ground. I was like, okay, that thing's coming off the ground. I'm getting a step. If I focus enough, I'm going to get there. And so sure enough, I get it off the ground. I take a step. I take another step. I take another step, and I'm walking and I'm moving and I'm walking, and I'm out of the corner of my eye. I had set myself a goal of getting that 10 meters within 30 seconds, and I'm stepping and I can see the goal of the time up there. Boom, cross the 10-yard line. I just carried 4 times my body weight on my shoulders.
Hell yeah.
That's a new level of awareness.
Oh yeah.
Like, my vision was different when I stepped away from that.
Mm-hmm.
My observation of the 25 people in the gym at that time was like changed in that moment. I can't believe I just focused that intensely to be able to do that. While I'm stepping, that thing is pressing down into me, and I can feel where the fracture was in my spine. Like, the awareness of keep that steady or else. I could feel the changes in my knee on that left side where they'd gone through 3 surgeries. I can step with this, but if I wobble at all, it's coming down. And so I can feel these old injuries, like just whispering while I'm stepping, just like, hey, stay focused. Hey, stay focused. And I get that 10 yards. And after I got that, there was a couple month period where I did exactly what you just described, tried to hold on to it. The ego of like, you did 800. I bet you could do 1,000.
Just pictures of grandeur in our
Just
head.
like, oh yeah, did it. Here's the next one.
Yeah. Of course, once you do 800, the only logical step is 1,000, and after that, it's just megafauna. It's elephants. It's
I killed the deer. It's time for the mammoth.
That's right. Yeah.
And so there was like this phase. If I remember correctly, it was like August when I achieved the 800, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to get 1,000, I should probably weigh more, and I weigh like 200 now, so it's reasonable that if I work my way towards 250, that I could carry 4x body weight and get 1,000. Like, this feels like an awesome goal. And I'm like allowing myself to eat a little bit more. My body weight's climbing. I'm allowing myself to focus more on strength work. I'm getting a little heavier. And it was after Thanksgiving that year that I walked up a flight of stairs and I was out of breath. My heart was racing. I was like, am I really getting more fit going in this direction? And I sat with myself over the next couple of weeks, and I realized that I had started increasing my asthma medication. I had been on a journey of decreasing it. And from that point, because I was striving, because I had grabbed onto it and I was like, awesome, let's go to the next one, and was not accepting that cycle, my body was giving me signals. You're not helpful. You're not healthy. You're not going to survive long enough to be useful for others. And so I said, okay, well, I've got to start paying attention to that. And I allowed myself to start reducing my body weight. I allowed myself to say, hey, maybe I'll get 4x body weight again, but it doesn't have to be at 250 pounds to hit 1,000. Maybe I'll get 5x at 200, but continuing on towards 250 and 1,000 is wreaking havoc on my body, and it's letting me know that.
Yeah.
And as I decided to descend down and start to take accountability for some more things, like the amount of asthma medication that I was on, so many times I've been down here and recycled, and down here and recycled, and down here and recycled, that I have like little to no level of phasing when other people go through that cycle.
Yeah.
That when they hit a new high, I can congratulate them and stand beside them and wait for that redirection and be there alongside them as they go, oh, but I just hit a PR and now I'm falling off. and to just like be there alongside them, knowing that they're going to have to take on that next piece of accountability, and I'll be there to help them find what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sacred journey that happens in part in the gym.
Yeah.
Right. It's really a reforming, or I don't even want to say an adaptation, because it's really an evolution of us as a person. Every time we are willing to get to that expansive awareness and reset on that personal accountability.
Yeah.
And we start to, for me, just the other day when I was in here, I had an expectation of what I should be able to do on a couple of with the single arm axle carries.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a big expectation, which caused me to go way up in weight and also run out of time quicker. And I could have piqued that frustration, but that test that day, that exercise, that test did not create weakness within me. It exposed it. It exposed what was already true. Now, not the only thing that's true. Just one thing that was true at that time on that day.
Yep.
And that's also true. And it just being able to integrate that rather than to have to deny that, rather than looking for, okay, what are these exogenous answers that are outside of me? Maybe I needed better music that day, which would never be the case in this gym. Of course, if you've ever heard Corey's playlist, you know that all the songs are gold and none of them will drive you absolutely freaking crazy because they're R&B when you're trying to deadlift. But
I saw him lift 350 the other day to like smooth jazz or something ridiculous.
And that's a PR. It's not just about the weight that's on the bar. It's the conditions under which you're doing it. And those were almost torturous conditions. So,
nailed it anyway, bro.
Hell yeah. We're getting fucking strong. But it didn't hit my expectation, and I could look, well, maybe I needed more coffee, exogenous. Maybe in this case, what I needed was a pre-workout. Maybe I needed different eating windows, and I was trying to predict all of these things, in order to create the right environment. What is the technique that I needed? Not necessarily considering this is a perspective I had to get to, which was the balanced growth mindset.
Yeah.
You were on a plane and sitting for about 12 hours yesterday.
Yep.
The sensitivity in your back is real. It's real. And it's telling you that this is great for today.
Yep.
Like on this day, this is a PR.
Yep.
And on another day, you can have another PR.
Yeah.
This is not an all-time PR, but for the conditions and for the decisions of today, this is a PR.
Yep.
And going back to that personal accountability of, I'm going to grow. I'm not going to teleport. I'm going to grow. I'm going to grow fitness. And that is a thing that is encompassing of all these pieces. And a lot of times what we want to do is teleport because it's going to take because we're afraid of how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
And my coach said this to me just a couple of weeks ago. He said, it's going to take longer than you think, but not as long as you fear. So get started today. And that was really an important message. It's going to take longer than you think, but not as long as you fear. And I just want to encourage people as they go through this process to not bring fear where fear doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Like this is a place where we may think that it's going to take a short period of time because we have expectations of performance. And what that can do is that can create separation between us and other people.
Yeah.
By creating defensiveness.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, you just don't understand. If the right music was on, if I did take my pre-workout, if I had my hormones right, if I had all those things, and I know what you would say because you've gone through this enough times with me, and I can now hear Corey's voice in my freaking head, which is he speaks slow and processes well in my head as well. Just so you guys know. But it's like to be in that position of like, this is important and it's not everything.
Yep.
That you are enough. There is more.
Yep.
It's the encompassing of the whole person because the Stay Active method has room for heartbeats in it, right? It's got room for real people who go through this up and down cycle. And do you only want to be at your physically fittest on the perfect days?
No.
Right? It's about being able to adapt to the circumstances as they arrive and show up with fitness.
Right.
The ability to fit.
Yeah.
The ability to adapt, right? And that's really what it is. This is not only about fitness, this is about fittest.
Uh-huh.
The person who is most able to fit in the most dynamic of circumstances.
Yep.
And that day included the other day where I PR'd, listen to smooth jazz. The days where I get up on the bar and I feel like, oh, this is great. The days where I get up on the bar and I can hardly pull myself up. There's variability. The days when I step on the scale and it's 5 pounds lighter than I think it is. The days I step on the scale and it's 5 pounds heavier. The days where things are hard at home. The days where things are easy at home.
Yeah.
The whole life, not just this one factor.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, especially as we see CrossFit at this point in time. This is very time specific.
Yep.
Really honing in on their standards.
Yeah.
Really setting the expectations. Like when we saw a bunch of people be penalized in the not in the open, but in the semifinals.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of people because they went with what they knew, carrying that expansive awareness.
What
There was
were they forced to do? Personal accountability.
Personal accountability. How were they forced to do that? By discovering just because I don't know doesn't mean I can't know.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know doesn't mean I can't know. And just because I don't know doesn't make me unresponsible. It doesn't make it so that I'm not responsible to follow through with the things I could know.
Right.
If this is a learning opportunity, that's great. If I get defensive, I shell up and shut down, well, screw me anyway, because I did it to myself.
Yeah.
Right? And this is meant to be that guide through that process. So this is awesome. The quitting moments that become committing moments. It's so powerful because I watch other people in the gym go through it, and all we just like get inspired and celebrate people when they're breaking through on those good days.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's so intoxicating, so inspiring.
Absolutely.
So this is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
This is the hero's journey. You're going to take accountability for something, compassionately be challenged, learn a balanced growth mindset. You're going to have to go through the descent. You're going to develop grounded resilience, and you're going to have a breakthrough. You're going to have more expansive awareness. As you go through that over and over, you have the opportunity to not only be the hero of your own story, but the mentor to somebody else's heroic journey.
Mm.
They've got their own process to go through. And we talked a few episodes back, I talked about the history of human fitness evolution. I talked about the branches of different phases of healthcare. And the ideal that we are striving for is that our healthcare professionals are the mentors of this journey.
Mm.
That they are going through that themselves. Doctor, heal thyself first. And then as you've gone through that, you're going to understand the symptoms that your patient comes to you with. You're going to understand the limitations and frustrations and challenges that your patient comes to you with. And when they take accountability for something and start on the journey and get redirected, you're going to be there at this crux.
Mm-hmm.
Not to give them a drug that allows them to drop back down, not to give them some treatment that creates some ignorance and stalls progress, but to help them maintain even while it feels like they're going backwards. Because this is really hard.
It is.
And as they've done enough of that, and their body needs to descend for a little bit, you've got to be there while they descend so that they don't get so sad they just stop. As they descend so that they don't get so heavy that they don't carry momentum into that grounded resilience. And you've got to be there with them that when that breakthrough is ready, you just let them do it. Off they go.
Mm-hmm.
And as they climb and elevate and have that breakthrough, they get their moment. Oh, my osteoarthritis is a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat on a plane for 4 hours and I was able to walk off the plane without pain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the spinal surgery that I had where I couldn't stay in a car all the way to the beach so I could go fishing with my friends. I was able to get all the way through that trip without being debilitated and having to turn around.
Yep.
To be along with them to enjoy that, to then realize, hey, they had that breakthrough, but they did have to stop the car 4 times.
Mm.
And they know that they want to be able to get there with only 2 stops instead of 4. And so when they start to look at, hey, what else can they take accountability for? The Stay Active Method app is going to be that tool that says, do you need them to coach? Do you need to coach them to exercise more frequently? Do you need to coach them that their frequency is on point and keep at it, but they need to do more each day when they show up? It's going to be the tool that guides you and says, hey, I know your back is hurting, but you're really good at lifting. We're not going to stop it altogether. We're just going to do a little bit less of it while we do more of this. You see how this is not as capable? We're going to do more of that. And it's going to support all of the strength that you have in lifting. And when you balance that out, we're going to have another breakthrough.
Yep. And that's, I think that's, if you had to look at one of the messages that I feel like is consistent throughout all my companies is we all start as a white belt, whether it was Corey, whether it was myself. I'm still a bit closer to that white belt. But it's starting to get dirty. It's starting to get some of the wear and tear on it, which is nice.
You're a brown belt in your own realms.
Yeah,
Brian.
in my own realms, right?
Yep, I'm learning from you. You're learning from me.
That's right. The importance of community right there, without a doubt. So people will say it's lonely at the top, and it's only lonely at the top when you don't bring other people with you.
Oh, yes.
And this is about building the strength and resilience, not only so that you can reach peaks of new expansive awareness, but so that you can help be that Sherpa that is truly the one who knows how to climb the best, right? And we see it. It's people with all the colorful jackets. Whenever we see Everest, it's the people with all the colorful jackets. Those are the one that gets a celebration. We want you as a hero to celebrate with your colorful jacket, but we also want you to know that there's a next step. There's even more of an expansive awareness if we're willing to sacrifice that to get back to personal accountability, to encounter again compassionate challenge, to see again how a new and another level of balance and growth mindset is, to be willing to descend before we ascend, to be able to descend into finding that grounded resilience where a lot of people find quit, you find commit, and you can do that in order to reach those new levels the first time for yourself and the second time with one other person. And then soon enough, you have a climbing party, you have a perspective party, you have a success party, you have a resilience party, you have a fitness party, you have people who are able to adapt to those circumstances, who have gone through this. And it's not that they've just gotten more high-end capacity, their comfort zone has grown, their skin has grown thick, yet they're not immune to the struggles of other people. They just see them in the context of growth. And that's why we want to present this North Star to you and for you to use that as a guide and integrate this guide into your journey. So not only can you look at it, but other people can look at that same North Star and you all can grow together, because that's what this is about. Because either people will grow with you or they'll grow from you. Right? And this is about growing with others, just as Corey has invited me into what I believe is a sacred space to be able to experience growth and truth, to be able to become strong enough to endure the truth I don't like, to become resilient enough to deal with the circumstances that I couldn't adapt to, that I used to have to cope through rather than be able to integrate into. This is the space we want you to invite you, is not the lonely at the top, but the top that is only there so that you can sacrifice that for the next level. So your vision isn't hitting its energy expiration date. So you don't become so outwardly focused that you start to judge others, but that you become, with right balance, you have that inward and that outward focus, and your fitness is there and available for you to help be that Sherpa that helps the next person who gets to the top with a brightly colored jacket. And you're like, you conquered Everest, right? But you'll be the one in the background knowing that you just have the capacity to continue to do this, because the journey is what's real. The celebration is what we sacrifice for the next level, and the standards continue to raise as the people we impact, as the numbers of people we impact continue to climb. So excited to be doing this with you, Corey. Thank you for inviting me into this space. And I look forward to breaking this down more in the future and really getting into the details, especially as we start talking about the hero's journey and the mentor's journey. And we talk about it at the end of every episode. I'm hitting this more because I'm watching more and more people reach out and raise interest about how do I get started? How do I get started? And we're saying, up the app. But we're done with that. We're going to open the gates. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to give you the opportunity to be able to direct message the Stay Active Method, Corey at the Stay Active Method. So if you look it up on Instagram, just Stay Active Method. If you're one of the first people to DM him, then you're going to get into his schedule for a free personalized client consult where he finds more about your goals, more about your struggles, more about the things that you've done successfully and the things that have held you back, to give you the chance to identify your own North Star and the work that's going to support it, the beliefs that are going to support it, the tools, the mindsets, all of the things that are going to support it. But the first 10 people who message him, and all you have to message is just one thing, just message free consult, He's going to respond to you. You're going to get that chance to connect. And then from there, you can decide, is this the destination? Is this the journey? Is my fittest, my most useful, my most inspiring, is that the person who I want to show up to as the world? And if you decide that, then climb with us, right? That's the journey we're on. We're going to continue to open it up to more people. We'll put anybody else who's outside of those first 10. So if you're like, I waited too long to do this, or I watched this way after it was released, still get on that list, because then as soon as we have availability, we're going to take our next 10. And we're also going to be growing our team of mentors over this next 6 months. We're going to be in a 6-month sprint for people to go through this process enough times by themselves, creating more and more expansive awareness that not only has room for them, but room for them to be able to plug other people in and go on that journey and build that climbing party together as a community, seeing these type of results we can celebrate and the type of work that encourages other people. So subscribe, do all that, but make sure to message him. Like I said, the first 10. If you're not sure if you're a part of that first 10, well, then just say I'm part of the first 10 in the message and say free consult. Well, we like boldness. We like eagerness. We like urgency, right? Urgency.
I can still count.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the counter of the group, actually. So he does words. I do numbers. It's a great team. But thanks so much for joining us. I hope you have found this helpful. I know the more time you spend with this framework, the more helpful it'll be. We're getting rid of all the external stuff. This is simple. This is coaching that meets your needs, and these are results that meet your efforts, and we're excited to bring it to you. So thanks for being with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, brother.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unlock Potential. For exclusive content, make sure to subscribe to our Patreon. Follow us across all socials at Unlock Potential 360 and visit our website at unlockpotential360.com to shop our gear and see what's coming up next.
The information and views expressed by our host or guests on the Unlock Potential podcast are their own, and not a substitute for professional medical or fitness advice. Always consult with qualified healthcare or fitness professionals before starting any new exercise program or making changes to your current routine.